Hello everyone, you better grab your lanterns, because today we are talking about a PC game I got long ago, a day and age, long ago, and it took forever to ever be able to play it, and that was the 2010 horror game Amnesia: The Dark Descent. And yes, this is a physical release. A lot of people don't actually know that this game actually did have a physical version of the game by THQ. For anyone who's randomly interested in that, it is available on Amazon. I got this when it first came out, so mine was absolutely brand new. But I remember about 5 months ago, somebody I occasionally watch mentioned that he was always interested in this, and there was never a physical release, so I linked him to the Amazon page for it. But this does not have the expansion on disc for anyone who's interested in, you know, having a physical version. This does not have that. The physical release just comes in a cardboard thing with a DVD case, and it just has a paper with the code on it and a disc. The code is not a online activation thing, it's just a very minimal piracy thing, you know, like the days of Diablo 2 and StarCraft, nothing requiring online, so this is not a heavily DRM'd copy or anything. Of course, you can get DRM-free versions of the game. It's no longer available on GOG, sadly. That is a shame, but it is available on Humble Bundle for DRM-free needs, and, you know. But anyway, Amnesia: The Dark Descent. We aren't talking about the added DLC to the game that was free. It's just the main game with Daniel. So, my story with this game, I got the physical release when it first came out, and I wasn't able to play it on my previous computer. It could not run the game. It would just crash, and that really made me sad, because, you know, when almost everyone and their mom was like, best horror game of the year, and, you know, at the time, everyone was like, oh, horror games are dead, because you just got all the more recent Resident Evils at the time were just tons of shooting and shit, and there wasn't really anyone doing that horror niche anymore. So it was a real shame that it took a while for me to ever really get this until I got my current computer, which would play the game. So I actually, it was one of the first PC games I got to play on my computer, but I kind of got sidetracked finishing it. But I did actually initially start doing videos for it, and then I later picked it up doing the rest of it live stream like I did recently. And I finally finished the game. It only took forever. Went along, progression load just to play the game, right? But that's mainly one of the reasons I always hate the PC front a lot, because when you run into that head block of some compatibility issue, you have to wait until you find a way around it, whether it's going backwards in older technology or you need to go forward in more modern technology, which is why I keep a lot of the old computers I have for the backwards. But basically, yeah, that's kind of my history with the game, but, yeah, you know, you're here to hear my thoughts on it, right? Yeah, at least I think that is. But anyway, so my thoughts on Amnesia: Dark Descent. It was rated, as said, the best horror game of 2010, very positively reviewed, and tons of people loved it, and I love it too. It's such a great concept. So, here's the setup for this. You play as character Daniel, who has amnesia. Now, shockingly, as, you know, corny as that might sound at first, it's actually really cleverly designed in a way. Basically, the character had given himself his own amnesia, as opposed to just walk to the head, oh, what the fuck am I? Was I an angel that fell from the sky that killed Diablo? Oh, I don't fucking remember, but, basically, you wake up in a castle that's crumbling to pieces, and you quickly stumble upon a paper that tells you your name, what you're doing, what you're in danger, and that something quite horrible has happened, and that you chose, that you should be proud that you chose to forget these things, but that your only goal is to kill a man named Alexander. Now why? Well, it doesn't go into great detail, but it tells you he's a monster and he's done horrible things and that he needs to die. He's an old, fragile man, and you are a young, strong man. So you search out this castle trying to find out what's going on, because you don't remember anything, but during moments in it you get weird little flashbacks to dialogue with some gentleman, which turns out to be Alexander, and you'll find notes and such that'll explain what's going on. Now obviously I don't want to go too forward until we get to the more end part where we'll talk about the story, spoilers, and death for, you know, people who don't want to have that spoiled. I always save that for the end. But that's basically the setup, and the whole game is just exploring this place, why having weird, spooky shit happen. Now, what's really interesting about this game, it's just not simply Resident Evil, you're locked in a mansion, there's monsters everywhere, shoot them, and find obscure puzzles. There are all lots of puzzles to find, and there are some monsters, but there's no fighting them. Oh, no. You can't kill these things. These things are out to kill you, and you only have the darkness to aid you in your defense. Well, that and your feet. The game is very, one of the best games I ever saw, light and darkness, be used in. I think that's why, a lot of people were excited about the original release of Dark Souls 2, because in the Tokyo Game Show and such, the demos and that, you had this insane dark and light mechanic with torches, which of course ended up not being in the final release, but I think a lot of people were excited in that element, because it's so awesome in Amnesia, and it would have been awesome in Dark Souls 2 also. Hopefully that'll be in Bloodborne though. But we're kind of sidetracking you. It has this awesome mechanic with dark. Basically, the darkness is your only real defense besides running to hide from monsters. Now, some of the monsters don't always fucking walk by you. There's not a lot of variety. You really have only two types of monsters, to be honest. With one technically having two types, but it kind of acts the same. It just, the other one's a little faster and more violent, but essentially it acts and works the same mechanic as the other one. One will basically just track you down no matter what. The scenes that usually involve it are just running, so those aren't really the main predator. The main predator is the monster that is sadly shown on the cover there, which I won't show again. But this monster will stalk you, basically. And what's really interesting is you never know if he's really there or not. And I'm going to explain about that statement in a little bit after I talk a little about the monster. But the monster essentially doesn't have really good eyesight. So the darkness, you hide from it. Crouch in the darkness, be in the corner, be as far away as you can from it. And don't stare at it, because that for some reason, it's psychically linking to it. It's I'm over here, I'm over here, I'm over here. It's it has this whole encouragement to hide in the darkness, but at the same time, there's a game mechanic that encourages you to stay in the light. Now, the thing is, you have a sanity meter, and the sanity meter explains exactly what I was just saying. You don't know what's real or fake. You can actually hallucinate enemies, or even being hit or smacked and shit, and weird environmental shit. Pictures can even look different depending on your sanity. So you have this whole conflicting, staying in the light keeps your sanity in the good or the judgment, but you need the darkness to hide from the monsters when they appear. But in the darkness, your sanity slowly drops, and if it drops all the way, you'll even pass out, leaving yourself completely vulnerable. And if you're being chased, that's a deadly option. But the game really has a really awesome system here. And even now, years after this game came out, it's still a really interesting concept. The only real flaw in the game, in my opinion, is dying. There's no penalty for dying, actually. I remember when Bioshock came out, a lot of people said that Bioshock was infinitely less scary than System Shock because it had, and I've never played Bioshock, so I'm trying to remember this kind of internet feedback back then, but it's something along the lines that you basically just instantly regenerate at nearby spawn point or something in Bioshock, where, in System Shock you can lose shitloads of progress based on how you save and shit. But this kind of feels like the same concept. Basically, when you die, those special spawn points, and some of them are actually kind of odd. I've actually been spawned deeper into a level when I was at the very start. It's kind of odd in that fashion. But there's no penalty for dying. You die and carry on. Supposedly the story concept for this is because the Shadow, which is, I guess technically that's a third creature, but it's not exactly a normal creature. But it is after Daniel, so I guess it is technically kind of an enemy. But the Shadow won't let you die because its will decide your own fate. But whatever.
The unflinching African sun has
but personally, once you realize you can't really die, and there's basically no punishment for dying, you can just continue on your way. It kind of destroys the fear factor. Like, the midway point in the game, it didn't come as terrifying, unless it was very connected to the story. The gameplay horror started falling down unless there was some immediate jump scare, which there were still a few, but aside from that, it started dropping down as deaths just became more meh. But the graphics, the interaction with the light and darkness and everything is very good. The puzzles, not incredibly complicated, but they're all understandable and everything, and they function, and it has a nice physics engine where you can pretty much grab most shit and throw it about and carry it around and stuff, and a few of the puzzles interact with that, but mainly most stuff you go to your inventory and click and use on here in a point-and-click style fashion and that. But there is some interaction where you have to actually physically pick up something and move it yourself. I wouldn't say the puzzles are very hard at all. It pretty much gives you everything you need to know. They're pretty simplistic. There's nothing really hugely cryptic. There was only 2 real times I was really stuck. And one of them I would just say I just didn't really think about. And the other one I thought was kind of a weird spot to put it. But But I really did enjoy the game, though. It's not an incredibly long game. You can probably, if you were really fast with it, you could probably do it in 5 hours. If you took your time, probably 8-10 hours. And anywhere past that, you're probably accumulating time from getting too stuck on solving puzzles or something. But overall, the game, I really liked it. It has 3 endings at the end, and you can basically load up right at the end, so you can experience all 3 endings. You can miss one of the endings if you don't do what's pretty much the only optional kind of side thing, aside from gathering all the notes. There is one real side thing that will affect the ending, and you can miss it. Now, the game will constantly tell you about it, and the character will tell you that please do this before you do this action that's, the end game. It's pretty obviously noted, so it's not like, oh, I didn't know about that. You're clearly told about it, so it's not something hidden, but you can ignore it and completely forget or give up on doing it. The story I already explained at the beginning of that, so I guess we should go into the story mechanic here. But I recommend the game. It's not very expensive. The physical version, the last time I checked, isn't very expensive if you want that. Like I said, the additional content, which was one campaign and a bunch of short stories, is a free update you can get from the creators themselves, or you can buy on the endless amount of digital services it's available on, whichever form of system you prefer. There's DRM, there's Steam, there's different services, wherever you prefer, those are options for you. So anyway, backing up. So the story is obviously one of the main focal points, aside from the whole mechanic of trying to stealthily hide and shit, and keep your sanity from hallucinating shit and stuff. Basically the idea is that Daniel basically tortured a crap load of people. Basically, he found an orb a long time ago, and this orb basically sent its guardian, which was this weird creature called the Shadow, to come and murder him because he found it. And basically, he didn't realize this was happening for a good while. He would talk about this event that happened to him with this orb and stuff. And the Shadow basically was following him, murdering everything he interacted with. So he eventually started reaching out to people, trying to look for a way to help himself once he realized this was going on. And Alexander, a baron at a castle, had accepted him into his castle in hopes of saving him. But sadly, it turned out to be more like using him. Taking his orb, because the orb he stole prior to it was destroyed, and basically lying to Daniel that he could save him from the Shadow, and basically used Daniel for his own needs of torturing people to enter the death. And basically they needed all this torment. There's a special kind of, basically, how to put it, they were kind of trying to get this feel emotion, you had to do it perfectly to gather it, or you fucked it up. And they would give them amnesia to make them forget they were tortured, to reset and do it again before killing them. So they killed a lot of people. Supposedly most of the people they were killing were murderers and that. In some cases it seemed to be true, in other cases it kind of seemed iffy. But Daniel finally realized what he was really doing. He was constantly in this, these are murderers, this is a life for life, they killed people, I'm fine, their lives are being used to save an innocent person and that. But they needed more people, and there wasn't any more criminals they had. And they raided a inn or a farm or a town little spot and took some more people, but they were innocent people. And this finally broke Daniel. He finally broke that wall of mentality he was putting up to defend his humanity. And it broke. He finally realized what he's been doing. And that's what started the whole beginning of the game. He gave himself, ironically, the very amnesia potion that they were giving the people they were torturing. So he would forget, leaving himself his only task to kill Alexander for using him as a pawn for his own game. So why did Alexander do all this? Well, apparently the orb goes to another dimension, a realm beyond. And as far as I understand, the game doesn't really dwell in a lot of this, but apparently it could be that Alexander might not be human. He has lived longer than a human being, but he fears for his life. In the recent events of the game, you can find a note where he's actually talking about that he's concerned that he's going to basically die, because apparently, at the time period, Napoleon's whole war thing just went down the drain and everything, so it's looking kind of bad for him. So he wants to go home, which apparently he goes here. I'm sure there's probably more information on this, and I just don't know it yet, but this is what I've gathered from it. And the end, where you get to the most most inner sanctum, the most deepest part of this castle, going down, like this, into these shadow things chasing you. You basically will run into the only other real person in the game besides the monsters. Before the inner sanctum, you'll find a corpse that's hanging, trapped, and it can't do anything. But he can talk to you. This person also supposedly comes from this other dimension, along with another person who was his pupil. Apparently, basically, he's trapped in this human husk. It basically can't die, so he's spiritually attached to it, forever trapped, as like a hostage for Alexander. Apparently Alexander wants something from his pupil, who is in the other dimension. But he wants his master back. So they're kind of in this hostage situation. So the side thing I talked about is basically getting him to come with you, which involves giving him a paralyzing potion that you make and cutting his head off. So he's still spiritually attached to his husk, but now he's just in the headpiece, and you're carrying him with you. So when you get to the most inner sanctum where Alexander is making this portal and shit for this stuff, and he'll do some dialogue, you have three options. You can push these pillars down, making the portal, killing you both, but in this ending, Daniel seems to actually just walk away. You can throw the guy's head inside, which supposedly saves Daniel, killing Alexander, or you can let Alexander go into the portal, which ends up Daniel dying. The three endings don't really add a whole lot to explaining the portal and everything. And like I said, I'm sure there was more additional stuff. There is the Remembered short stories, and there is the add-on, and I haven't played either of those. Like I said, we'll just talk about the original game here. So the story is pretty off the wall. It's not completely a whip-off or, well, I mean, it's kind of hard to say something that ain't a whip-off. I mean, I'm sure somebody could probably come up with some examples, but it doesn't come off as something that just whipped a ton of plot ideas from the book of stereotypes. It's interestingly odd. I really enjoyed Amnesia: The Dark Descent, and I really hope I convince a few people to go check it out. Because it's not a new game, obviously. It's from 2010. But lots of people liked it, and it's still really good. It's still really good. And I know when its sequel, what was it, The Machine of Pigs or something like that, a lot of people really missed it, the kind of strange sanity meter that was in Amnesia. It supposedly works mostly the same, aside from the weird illusions and shit don't exist in it. So, and to me, that's one of the really interesting, cool concepts of its gameplay, is being void of staying sane. But because if you're not staying sane, you can see shit that's not real. You won't know until it's point blank in your face whether it's real or not. So, but I have never got close to most of the monsters. The ones I have killed me. But supposedly, if you go close to an illusion, the hallucinations, they just poof and give you really bad sanity. So the only real way to tell is to confront them. And, you know, obviously you don't want to do that unless you want to die. But like I said, there's no real consequence for dying, so you can abuse that. And that, to me, is the really major flaw of the game, is just dying. There's no real punishment for it. I don't think you should, like, you know, replay the whole game. Like, maybe start at the beginning of the section you were at, or just further back or something. But just being able, like, have everything you gather and just respawn, no damage penalty or anything, it really kind of takes away the survival horror aspect of it. Now, to my understanding, in the add-on, which I plan to play in the future, you actually do permanently die. So, in that game, it'll be interesting to see, from how I think it would be more fearful, having a little permanent death system. I mean, not like delete your save kind of permanent death, but I mean, you know, you don't just respawn and everything you did is perfectly fine, you know. Oh, I ran, pulled that switch and the monster killed me, but the switch was still pulled, so. But it'll be interesting to see if I still think that when I play the add-on. So either way, I hope this really interested some people in this game. It's a really good game. It is sadly only on the PC. It is not available on any consoles or anything. And that is a shame, but the newest game, which is supposed to be a sci-fi setting, is supposedly going to come out on some of the consoles, which will be exciting, because most of Fractional's games, they have the same kind of way they play. Like, they're very hoolish, and you can interact with the items and shit, so if it's going to be anything like the past games, I'm going to be excited for it. And it'll be nice to see it on consoles, because for the most part, you know, I've always said I usually like console versions of stuff most of the time, unless it's a real-time strategy game or something of that caliber. But either way, if you have a question or anything about this game, please leave a comment down below. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, praise the sun. And keep your lanterns close, Daniel.
Where did the Baron go?
Who cares? He left us enough wine to last us a lifetime. Or at least until tomorrow.
My chest is going to burst.
My God! Wilhelm, do something!
Accept it. We're not getting out of here.
How can you say that? Alexander, you piece of shit! Let us out of here!